while he has made some good videos, Socialism for All does have a pattern of Zionist normalization, as we see right here. Let me see this. Again, he's platforming JVP, right? And I did a whole video on this. JVP is a Zionist organization. They push Zionist normalization. They're funded by the Tides Foundation, the Jewish Communal Fund, the Baffer Young Fund, the Schwab Charitable Fund, right? So they're normalizers, right? And their entire framework is liberal Zionist. And again, Socialism for All has 2 videos on his channel promoting JVP. That's a red flag, right? And again, he also promotes the Liberal Zionist Green Party, which is a Zionist party. We'll get more into that on another video. But I just wanted to expose what's-his-face, Socialism for All, for supporting the liberal Zionists of JVP. Again, so here's the tweet from Nerdine Kiswani. So I'm sorry, but if JVP, if not now, and JFred want more praise than the Neture Carta and want to be seen as truly progressive anti-Zionist organizations, they need to start acting like it. That means actually embodying anti-Zionism, not just condemning resistance, but openly supporting it. And Good Shepherd's Collective says, these organizations articulate a version of Zionism these organizations articulate a version of Zionism by which the settler remains control the political structures, land, and resources through a discourse of equal rights. Their demand for equal rights enshrines the rights of the settler, realized at the expense of Palestinians. And then they link an article. This article here demonstrates how French settlers try to deploy the rhetoric of equal rights to take control of the land from the Kanaks in New Caledonia, and these orgs express a solidarity that is marketable to their liberal base at the individual, institutional, and governmental level of funding. JVP, and if not now, are funded by the same groups that openly finance Zionist institutions like the NIF and money from the US government. There's evidence of that. From Palestine, it's frustrating to watch other Palestinian formations organize with these groups and effectively sign off in their very limited versions of solidarity and so-called quote-unquote anti-Zionism. There is nothing so-called quote-unquote strategic quote-unquote about lining with modes of Zionism. We've heard members of Palestinian Youth Movement and Students for Justice in Palestine argue that they organize with the local JVP and if not now chapters because they're good people. Okay, sure, but then ask them to stop franchising liberal Zionism. They can start their own group with a new name and not spread those brand and their politics. Yeah, so they can end all ties with if not now and JVP and start something new. On another note, it's important to understand that these groups, if not now, JVP, JFREG, allied resistance formations, not simply because of the potential legal repercussions, but because there's an agreement between them and liberal Palestinian personalities such as Linda Sarsour, Noura Arakat, Moin Rabani, to name a few, by refusing to support Palestinian resistance in all its forms, or openly condemning them, as all of these groups have done. Those in solidarity reinforce liberal control over the Palestinian narrative by choosing which Palestinians they will listen to and uplift. This was a mutually beneficial arrangement in which these groups work in solidarity with their Palestinian partners, all of whom are hand-selected and don't represent the popular will, but rather respond to liberal donors and their version of quote-unquote peace through the human rights paradigm. This conscious effort allows both groups to maintain their relevant status and the financial support of their donors while eating up undeserved public spaces, quote-unquote experts, so-called, right? It's not only that these groups do this, but their overinflated budgets certainly help keep them on posters and calling some of these shots. This has been detrimental to international solidarity organizing efforts. Here's another one. Equal Rights for All is the NGO version of All Lives Matter. Within the context of settler colonialism, the rights of the settler by design can only be realized at the expense of the indigenous population. Statements of this form today advance colonial thought. This framework highlights how French colonizers used the equal rights framework in an attempt to secure voting rights for the settler community to maintain their colonization of the Kanak people. Zionist apologia follows the same logic, inciting bigotry against Palestinians and allies when they say completely normal things like settlers should not, in fact, have rights over Palestinian land, resources, or social economy. The equal rights framework is a rhetorical device deployed to enshrine the settler position within law and fact over the indigenous population. Decolonial movements have been pointing this out for hundreds of years. If, after 365 days of genocide, organizations and online personalities continue to utilize this paradigm of imperialism, it is because they don't take the work seriously, or they're using this language because they understand its intent and impact, hold them to account, right? Again, Socialism for All has outed himself as a Zionist normalizer, by promoting liberal Zionist organizations such as JVP and the Green Party. He is a normalizer, right? And he's not harsh enough on his critiques of Bernie Sanders, right? Where is this? He had a stream and he was soft on Bernie, right? Is that this one?
Parts with the smugness. And I'm going to be checking in with the chat as we go on this one.
Maybe, no, it wasn't that one.
Class party forming. And you have to ask left and more broadly, socialism versus social democracy in history, and specifically the counter-revolutionary anti-socialist role that social democracy has played in various historical situations in different countries. In this video series so far, we have done a variety of different things. We did reactions to Secular Talk and The Vanguard, which are pro-Bernie Sanders YouTube channels. We've read excerpts regarding the counter-revolutionary role of social democracy from socialist historians and theoreticians. We have responded to comments that social democratic commenters, pro-Bernie commenters have posted. And I've done my own video essay work trying to put this into recent...
No, where's the...
class party forming. And you have to ask yourself...
No, it's this one.
The prominent campaign in 2000 as the Green Party presidential leader, and he was a very well-known consumer advocate.
Oh, this is where.
Welcome to Socialism for All. This is S4A live stream number 127 being recorded on April 24, 2025. And joining me as always in the chat at twitch.tv/socialism S4A are several dozen people. We're up to 50 viewers right now. And what we're going to do in today's stream is try to do live a video that I was going to do as an offline video, talking about the Bernie and AOC rallies, the Fight Oligarchy tour, in the context of Trump's first 100 days, and an overall really lackluster response from the Democratic Party, who borderline seemed to have thrown the last presidential election with running Biden up to the last minute as he's, fumbling his way through debates and saying things like, "We finally beat Medicare," which they tried to say he was actually trying to say, "We finally beat COVID." I firmly believe he meant, "We finally beat Medicare," as in we got that, out of the public consciousness as a topic. Guess what, though? People still need healthcare, and that's not actually going away. But in the context of all of that, they're doing this Fight Oligarchy rally tour. And the Soc Dems seem to be really, really vehement about it. And so I sat down trying to do an offline video responding to all of this. Like, what's going on with Trump and Musk? What's going on with the economy? What's going on with the Democratic Party? And how can the left sort of get in the game here? Because U.S. left is borderline non-existent. There are a few small left parties that are suppressed heavily and have just never really gotten started in the U.S. electoral system, which is extremely hostile to anything that isn't a Democrat, a Republican, or a former Democrat, Republican, multimillionaire candidate who basically acts like some cross between, a Democrat and a Republican. So basically around the election, about 6 months ago, I did a number of videos on like the Green Party and PSL and the election and the possibility.
And that's another example of the Zionist normalization of socialism for all. He normalized Zionist Jill Stein. Jill Stein's a Zionist. Jill Stein, why do you think Jeffrey Sachs and J.B. Fonleroy and Nick Cruz were shilling for Jill Stein? Why do you think Medea Benjamin was shilling for Jill Stein? Jill Stein's a Zionist.
Possibility of another Trump term and what the Democratic Party was doing, putting Kamala Harris in there, who had gotten 0 delegates in the 2020 primary. It's overwhelming. And now Trump is in, and it's a significantly different tone than the first term. We were talking about this in the last live stream last month, number 126. And it's overwhelming. It's totally overwhelming. And I sat down and I was writing an outline, which turned into a script. And then I started recording it, and I got 33 minutes into it. And I felt like I was just flailing, because a lot of the video and a lot of the messages really don't know what that means. So we'll talk about the labor movement, more of the mainstream liberal.
I'm trying to move up to where I need to be on this video because I got a busy day. So
who don't even want to reform capitalism, with the chat in part to make sure where there's a sort of contrarian libertarian streak in there, because the party is fringe, a sharp class conscious vanguard in the first place, and everything kind of follows from that. But as far as trying to get something kickstarted to rally people around and maybe change some of the laws, reshape the playing field, maybe get some of the labor laws changed, pass card check, which Democrats have been talking about forever, and then they never do anything about it, which would make it much, much easier to start a union, which we desperately need. Unions are at an 80-year low in this country. They've just been on the decline since the 1960s, early 60s. And Bernie had a shot to lead people out and actually jumpstart the Green Party, who invited him to do it. They're like, look, we will offer you our ballot.
So now he runs cover for Bernie, makes no mention that Bernie literally lived on a kibbutz in 1963. Bernie's a settler. He's a Zionist settler. And that kind of fits in with the pattern.
We're going to enter the Green Party. We'll say, well, isn't it a good
And
thing?
the fact that he shows for the liberal Zionist Green Party, which uses a framework of equal rights on Palestine, that indicates to me that socialism for all is some sort of liberal Zionist.
No, I don't actually see giving people hope and then crushing that hope as part of that. And we're going to do some readings, and he's a communist, fairly popular. Everything is the fault of people who didn't vote, an on-off light switch. It's been building for a long time. I became politically active, those of you listening for a while know, in the Bush and Cheney years during the War on Terror in the 2000s, which is a decade that the U.S., I think, has so much shame and shock from. Still, there's a collective amnesia about that decade. But they set up most of the infrastructure that is currently being implemented. And the Democrats have, well, they rubber stamped it at the time when the Democrats took part of that. The base was clamoring for. Takes a massive, massive amount of organizing to do that. That would be the logical party choice, but Bernie won't do it. And so Bernie is sort of like a sharp class-conscious vanguard in the takes a massive, massive.
Either way, on this video, Socialism for All makes excuses for supporting Bernie in 2016, right? No, there were zero excuses, right? I mean, there were already receipts about Bernie saying that Bernie was a Zionist, Bernie lived on a kibbutz. So again, this fits in perfectly with Socialism for All's pattern of liberal Zionist normalization, right? His pattern of Zionist normalization. Again, JVP is a Zionist organization, right? And look how they say opposing war, but they don't talk about opposing settler colonialism. I wonder why. Look at who they're funded by, right? Look at who JVP is funded by. Look at who's on their board of directors. I don't even know why. Actually, I do know why Plitnik is still being platformed by Mondoweiss. Mondoweiss is a liberal Zionist publication, right? Look at who is on the board of directors for JVP, right? So yeah, JVP is Zionist. So there you go.